Today we are doing the Jaguar F-Type Buyer's Guide. I'm Justin.
And I am Aaron.
And this is Husman Bros. And before we go too much further, please subscribe for more great content like this and more buyer's guides of beautiful cars like this one.
Are you in the market for a Jaguar F-Type? If so, this video is for you.
Absolutely. Now you might be in the market for some other sports car as well, but you should know about the F-Type.
There are some great deals.
They're a pretty good deal right now. I see a lot of these around Dallas. As someone who travels quite a bit, you don't see these cars as much in other cities as you do in Dallas.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the F-Type, something you may not have considered.
Because not all F-Types are created equal.
Exactly. So this is a 2014 F-Type S V8. So Jaguar made it confusing.
Yes.
In 2014, you had a V6. You had a V6S, and then you had the V8S. Now, the V8S is the one to get from this first year.
Now, wasn't there a 4-cylinder also?
That's later on.
Okay.
So have an awareness of the 4 cylinders, but you want to look for this one, depending on your budget. This is about a $40,000 to $50,000 car, depending on how many miles are on it. If I'm wrong, tell me in the comments. As I know
whether
you
you're
will.
talking the 6 or the 8, this is a beautiful car.
Absolutely. These are a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
I think that these have one of the best sounds of this time frame, and I know this one has an exhaust. We'll get to that shortly.
Agreed.
But just stock, these are fantastic. But what are you looking for when you buy a car like this? You're going to spend $40,000 or $50,000. Where do you even start?
You want to buy the right one, especially when you're buying a used sports car, semi-exotic car. If you buy the wrong car, you are just going to be up to your neck in bills, trying to maintain it, trying to fix the problems that were left by somebody else. So make sure you buy the right one. That's what we hope to show you in this video.
Absolutely. Now, let me first make the case why you should buy one of these, as opposed to a Porsche or something else. 1, they're beautiful. 2, they sound fantastic. 3, Jaguar is getting out of the gas car business. So if you're buying an F-Type, you are going to be buying one of the last gas-powered Jaguar fire-breathing monsters. And I think that if you buy it right, you can actually end up ahead of the game in the long term, more so than you would normally in a Jaguar, because these are incredible.
Yep. So let's dig in and talk about what you need to know about a Jaguar F-Type before you buy.
Let's do it. You handle that part. Come back to me when we get inside.
All right. We're not going to save the best for last. We're going to get right into the engine. So, of course, the Jaguar has one of my favorite types of hood, front hinge, heavy hood. So you want to make sure to lift that from the center. But there it is in all of its glory. Supercharged V8 pushing out 495 horsepower. Now, remember, this is a 2014. The year after this, it has the same motor, but now it's pushing 550 horsepower. So choose wisely when you are looking at these. Are you okay with 495? Do you want to go 1 year later and get more horsepower? You got to decide. So if you don't want to do any work and you just want it 550 out of the box, make sure you get something 2015 or later. But remember, it is the same engine. All they did was tune it higher. So you can also buy a 2014 and you can get it tuned up to that 550, or if you're technical enough, you can do it yourself. Now, like I said, this is the V8 in 2014. You could also get a V6. That only pushes out about 380 horsepower. So in 2014, you could also get a V6 in this. There's actually 2 options for V6. You've got the supercharged V6, which puts out about 380 horsepower, and then you've got the non-supercharged base V6, which puts out less than 380. In the later years, you could also get a 4-cylinder in this car as well. But I don't really care about 4-cylinder cars, so I'm not even gonna find out any of the details on what they have. I guess if you want a 4-cylinder that looks like this, go find yourself a later Jaguar F-Type. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the things you need to look for within the engine compartment here. Now first, you're buying a used sports car. One of the best things that you can do to give yourself peace of mind is buy one that has great records. If you buy a car with great records, you know the previous owner has taken very good care of that. So that would be the first thing I would want to look for if I'm going to pay top dollar for this car. This owner did take good care of it. We do have records, but if you have one that does not have good records, here are some things that you need to try to figure out. First, water pump. The water pump on these will leak, and so it should be replaced. Otherwise, you're gonna have a mess on your hands and it could fail eventually. So find out if that water pump has been replaced. At the time this car was made, they were using a lot of plastic parts here. In fact, they used plastic coolant lines, and so those plastic coolant lines, as you can imagine, within a very, very hot engine compartment will eventually harden, crack, and fail. So ideally you want to see those lines have been replaced by metal coolant lines, braided coolant lines, something that is not going to fail in that way. That repair is about a $1,300 repair, or that replacement is about a $1,300 replacement. So make sure you can identify that that has been done on this, otherwise it will be on your dime. Now another important thing to look at on these cars, these vents from the hood, they are not perfectly engineered, and so water can get in through these vents and it can drip down on the engine. When it does that, it can get into the coil pack, and if water gets in that coil pack, over the long run, that coil pack is going to fail. So this car has not had the vents replaced, but it's also garage kept. You look at this car in the engine compartment, it is clean, very clean. There's no dust on this cover. There's no oil that has been dripped all over. I mean, this is a very clean engine compartment. This car has been very well maintained. You can see the bottom of the hood here, clean. It's been cared for, and that's what you want to see. This car has been kept in a garage, so while the vents are still the original vents, you see no evidence that water has dripped down and could be potentially causing a problem that you don't see. All right, so for the engine compartment, that is about all we have to go over. And again, I'm trying to close this thing from the middle, and you can tell it's a little bit awkward, but just want to make sure I don't tweak that hood at all. It's a very heavy hood, so it would be a good idea to open that up and see, is that hood tweaked? Is there something weird about it? Because if you have a car that has been closed from one side or the other side, it's probably going to have some tweak to it. We're going to move towards the back of the car where all the power is, because this is a rear wheel drive car. That is all that was available in 2014 is rear wheel drive. In 2015, they also had rear wheel drive. They had not introduced the all wheel drive yet, but for 2015, if a convertible is not your thing, 2015 is the only year of the Jaguar F-Type that provided the option of a rear wheel drive coupe. So if that's your thing, you're gonna need a 2015. These 2014s and 2015s are rear wheel drive. They hold more value than the 2016 and later, where they introduced all wheel drive for all of the F-types. So depending, if the drivetrain is really important to you and what you have, rear wheel, all wheel, just make sure you're looking at the right generation of Jaguar F-Type. All right, now let's check out the brakes, because we already talked, it's got a lot of go, but what about the stop? So you can see we've got red calipers here. These are Brembo brakes, very nice brakes. Carbon ceramic was an available option. However, it's an incredibly rare option. Mostly guys who wanted to take them to the track got the carbon ceramic, because let's be honest, that is a big bill when it's time to do brakes. If you're looking for one that is carbon ceramic, make sure you're looking for yellow calipers. That's going to indicate you got carbon ceramics on there, unless somebody wanted to paint them yellow, I suppose. Now, some of you are watching and wondering when we're going to get to the leaky part, because it wouldn't be a Jaguar if we didn't talk about leaks, right? So the old saying goes, for a British car, if there's no oil under it, then there's no oil in it. And for old British cars, that absolutely holds true. But this is a modern Jaguar. It is 10 years old at this point, so it is an older car and things are going to wear out. Rubber is going to dry up, it's going to shrink. But this traditionally is not a very leaky Jaguar. So if you find one and it has a leak and you're just thinking it's a British cars leak, no, you got something bad on your hands. You should be really concerned about it. At best case scenario, you should be paying a lot less for that car because you got a project on your hands. Now, when it comes to fluids, there is one thing that is really important on this car: the differential fluid. Jaguar recommends the differential fluid be changed at 60,000 miles. But the differential in these Jaguar F-Types is an active rear differential. So because it is active, it generates a lot of heat. Over time, all that heat is going to end up leaving the fluid gummy, and it needs to be replaced. Jaguar recommends that the differential fluid be replaced at 60,000 miles, but any Jaguar F-Type owner who knows a little bit about the cars knows that that needs to be replaced closer to 30,000 miles. This one has 25,000 miles on it, and the differential fluid was just changed. So another sign that you've got a conscientious owner that has taken care of the car, and you're gonna have a good car on your hands rather than a basket case. Now, maintenance on these cars is not cheap. If you want cheap maintenance, don't buy a Jaguar. But the differential fluid change is about a $300 maintenance item. A friend of his had the differential go bad because the fluid was not changed. It was a $12,000 repair. Know your diff and make sure you see that record to confirm that you don't have a $12,000 expense right around the corner. So while this is a beautiful car and I can stay on the outside talking about it all day long, you should check out what's going on inside, and Justin's gonna tell you about that.
That's exactly what I'm in here for. Aaron gets to remember all the technical stuff. I get to talk about the fun stuff. So let's talk about what you're looking for on this car when you're looking to buy it. You want to look at general wear in an interior. This is a beautiful interior, fits like a glove, looks like a baseball glove. It's just fantastic. So first you want to start with the knobs here. So most cars of this era, these knobs are starting to get sticky. Now it's an easy fix. It's just some alcohol, wipe it down. It's going to solve that problem.
Alcohol, bourbon or tequila?
This is a Jaguar, Scotch.
Oh, of course.
Okay, so you're gonna want to wipe that down. Make sure that they are not sticky because that tells you who you're dealing with. Another thing you want to be aware of. So when you've got a car with some buttons like this, and Jaguars are especially prone to it, if you have a woman who drove this who used lotion on her hands, that breaks down the plastics in these buttons, and so these will need to be replaced. I've seen a lot of these Jaguars, you've got a broken start button and a worn out park button. The cost to replace these two pieces is about 60 bucks in a couple hours time. So make sure that you're dealing with the right owner. When you're buying a car like this, you're buying the owner. You're not necessarily buying the car, right? This one has carbon fiber. You want to look for cracks in the carbon fiber. Is the dash working? Is everything coming on? Are there any lights? So I'm going to go ahead and start the car because that's one of the great things about this car is the sound, so you can hear it, but I want to show you something you're going to be looking out for here in the interior. So first, let's start it. Get ready, hold your breath. That sounds great, but if we look here, this is our AC vent. So this is our AC vent. When we turn our AC on, we see this raises up about halfway. So this is a known problem with these. Sometimes cars get fancy and little things break on it. So this is about an $800 fix. The person that owns this car is not particularly worried about it because you can just touch it and it'll go back down, or you can pull it and it'll come up. But if you're buying this car, it's something you need to be aware of, because if you're paying max ticket for it, you want to either make sure this works or talk to the owner about it. One of the other things you want to look for on a car like this is your wear on your buttons. As we see, we have no wear on the lettering in this buttons. This is a 10-year-old car and everything looks as new. It again tells you who owned the car, tells you how well they drove it and how well they took care of it. As a Jaguar owner, I'll tell you there are no cheap parts on this car, and here's the challenge is that as Jaguar is getting out of the gas car business, they're going to want to work on these cars less and less. It's going to be harder and harder to find parts. As a guy who drives a 20-year-old Jaguar, I'll tell you that I get turned away by the dealership. If you have a car like this, you had better have a mechanic in your town that will specialize in this car, because the dealership is going to be less and less of a resource on it. Aaron was talking a little bit about V6 versus the V8s, and so the V6S actually has the Good Neighbor exhaust button as well. You want to make sure that you're aware of that. If it's debadged like this car, if it has this button, then you know you're working with a V6S. But this is a V8S, so they all have that button. In addition, you've got the active spoiler button, you've got the stop and start button so that it stops annoying you at stoplights and turning itself off, and then the hey, let's get crazy button. But this is the one you want to look out for on your V6. Now let's talk about some of this stuff on the door. One of the things you want to look for, this is a 25,000 mile car, so as you see, all the leather here and touch points are in really good shape, right? We have no bolster wear really. You want to make sure that you're checking all these buttons. There is, I guarantee, a little bitty micro switch in here that costs a ton of money. If you don't test all these things, that's a bill waiting to happen. Now, let's talk about some other things you need to be looking out for. You want to ask the owner, was this car parked inside or outside? And you can determine that a lot by how clean that engine compartment is. But the reason you want to know that, underneath this flap here, you have the drain holes for the convertible top. If this car parks outside, There's a very, very good chance those drain holes will get clogged, and you're going to be looking at a $2,000 repair when it shorts out one of these convertible motors. Speaking of convertible tops, I love the way this top is set up. This is one of the things I love about this car versus my Jaguar, is that this is the tonneau cover, that the roof itself is the top. Looks great, really functions great. This car, there's not a whole lot of wind noise, but we'll drive it in a minute, you'll see that. Really, really a great car. Last fun point I want to point out about these cars, this is not something you need to know to be able to buy one, but something you should think about. Traditionally, when it comes to Jaguars, the rule was you could carry 2 golf club bags in the trunk. That went by the wayside. So if you're a golfer, this is not the Jag for you, unless maybe you're a disc golfer or you do par 3 where you just need a putter and like an iron. So that would work in here. You could bring your friend along and do it. But you want to look in here too though. Is the spare tire kit still here? How clean is this? How clean is it around here? All these little things tell you who the previous owner is and how well he took care of this car, which is really the key when you're buying a car like this. So this car has an active rear spoiler. You want to test that because there is a button in the cabin that'll let you test that. On the convertible, this goes up automatically at 60. On the coupe, it goes up automatically at 70. But test it, make sure it works. This is not a cheap thing. Now, just for an identification purposes, if you're watching our videos just to learn about these cars, the quad exhausts tell you it's a V8. If the exhaust is in the middle, that means it's a V6. Now this has an aftermarket exhaust. The stock exhaust comes with chrome tips on it, but Cousin Marshall has upgraded this one. Only thing left now is to drive it. Now, a lot of people are scared of convertibles because convertible tops are expensive to fix. So when you're buying a car like this, you want to make sure that the convertible works well. This should run smooth, and I know this one does. It'll come up smooth. You hold this up. Now, let me show you a test here. Okay, we're going to put the windows up, because if the window's up and you put the top up, those windows should drop automatically. You see how smoothly this top is going up? There's no noise, there's no hesitation. It's going up and clicking itself in just beautifully. You want to make sure that works. The other thing you want to do with a car like this is you want to roll your windows up. And you want to make sure that when you close the door, those windows drop and load themselves properly. If they don't do that, you have a micro switch that's broken, which is going to be another expensive fix. But as we open it, we see the windows drop just a hair, and as we close it, they put themselves back into place. You want to make sure that works every time on both sides. If you're going to buy a car like this, you're certainly going to take it for a test drive, and I'm not going to be any different. Let's take it for a drive. If they won't let you drive it, I'm just going to say walk away. There's plenty of these cars out here. Unless you've got a really special one, you should be able to drive this car. This is, after all, a performance vehicle. We need to see how it performs. And as we see, when we put the top down, those windows drop as well. So make sure all of these little things work. They may not seem like a big deal, but they're certainly going to be expensive if they're not working. So the roof is good to go now. Hop in, let's go for a quick ride. This cockpit is a very tight cockpit. I do love this one. It's a great cockpit. Now we're in standard mode here. This is just base mode. This is a lot of car. At nearly 500 horsepower, even in base mode, you can feel how strong this is. So not only is there a lot of power in this car, but as Aaron mentioned, this is rear wheel drive. If this is your first fast car, have an awareness of how squirrely this car can be. With the rear wheel drive and all this power, this is absolutely a car that can get away from you. Just like that. Now you can hear how great this sounds. It's a fantastic car. Now we're in normal mode here. This is regular traffic mode. A very, very drivable car on streets. We've got a truck in front of us and a truck behind us, so I can't really go crazy here. But it's a drivable car. It feels nice. It doesn't feel like it's being constrained. It just feels like a really nice car. Until we hit the button. We'll do that once we go around the corner. I'm going to take this around our super secret test track here, and we'll put it in sport mode. So we have a couple different modes here on the controls. So we have dynamic mode. We pull it down, and that's going to change the shift points. It's going to tighten up the suspension. It's going to tighten up the steering a little bit, make it feel a little bit more like a sports car. But Jaguar has a nice option here too. They've got snow and wet mode. And snow and wet mode is going to start it in second gear. It's going to retard the car a little bit from a performance perspective so that you don't end up in the neighbor's bushes. Now, we'll get on the track here in a second. Let me put it back into dynamic mode. We'll see what happens. Oh my goodness. This is a great car. Grayson doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to try to get him to buy this thing. Oh goodness. Now, there's another even further we can go, and I'm not on the track and I'm not going to do it, but if you put this car over into sport mode in addition to dynamic mode, then you're on your paddles. And things are different altogether. Wow, what a car. What a car. This is an automatic. It's a sport automatic, so you can shift it and all that sort of thing. If you're a person who has to have a shifter, you've got to get a V6 in this car, which is probably a tremendous amount of fun in itself anyway, but I'm of the mindset that just like a Mustang, you don't buy the base, you buy the biggest one that you can get because that's where the most fun is. I'm going to go ahead and call this done on this video. Thanks for watching. If you liked mine and Aaron's t-shirts, please look down below for the link to our shop and help support us that way. But I'm going to put this back into dynamic mode, and I don't want to be filmed while I do what I do next.